everyone, in our today's video, we are going to have a quick revision on functions. First of all, functions means group of statements that are used to perform particular task. Any function will perform three tasks. It takes input, perform the task, and gives output. The set of statements in a function should be enclosed in flower braces. Every C program consists of at least one function. That one function is main function. We can call any function for multiple number of times in any code as they perform reusability and modularity. Now we see the use of functions. The main purpose of writing functions is it can be used as reusability and modularity. It means we can avoid writing the same code multiple number of times because we can call it for any number of times. This is reusability, and modularity is we can divide large C programs into multiple functions so that the code would be simple. And the functions are of two types: built-in functions or library functions, user-defined functions. Now we'll look into the built-in functions. These are defined in C libraries or header files such as scanf, printf, and gets. And user-defined functions are defined by the user for reducing the complexity and to optimize the code. The examples of user-defined functions are main, add, fact, sum, sub, etc. Now we will look into the returning values. The function may or may not return a value. If we want to return anything, we use void as return type. In the given example, you can see printf welcome. In this program, the compiler will not return anything. It just prints as welcome on the output screen. So we use void as return type. And if we want to return something from the functions, we use data types such as int, long, char, float, etc. as return type. In the example, you can see that the compiler wants to return age, which is an integer. So we use int as return type. Now we will look into the parameters. Parameters are the variables that are defined during the function definition or function declaration. These are placeholders. When a function is invoked, we pass a value to the parameter. This value is referred to actual parameter or argument. The parameter list refers to type of parameter, order of parameter, and number of parameters of a function. Any function may or may not contain parameters. In the given example, you can see int max, int num1, int num2. Here, int num1 and int num2 are the parameters. Parameters are of two types: actual parameter and formal parameter. Actual parameter is also called as argument. Arguments are the values that are passed in function call, and formal parameters are the values that are called in function declaration and function definition. Arguments are used to send the value, but the formal parameters are used to receive the values. We can write any program based on functions in four ways. They are without parameters, without return value, without parameters, with return value, with parameters, without return value, with parameters, with return value. If you look into the example, you can understand here. In first example, there is a program on without parameter and without return value. Here, the compiler don't want to return. Here, the compiler will not return anything. It just prints as welcome on the output screen. So, we use void as return type. And in the next program is based on without parameters and with return type. Here the compiler wants to return age, so we use integer as return type. And in the third program is based on with parameter without return value. Here the compiler will not return anything, it just prints as x is greater or y is greater. So we use void as return type. And in the fourth example is based on with parameter and with return value. Here the compiler will return something and the parameters are also given. So we use int as return type. The best way to write any program using functions is to follow three steps. They are function declaration, function calling, and function definition. In function declaration, it tells the compiler about the function's name and return type and list of parameters like variable declaration. And in function definition, it provides the actual body of the function. And in function calling, the function can be called from anywhere in the program. Parameter list should be same as function declaration. Now we'll have a detailed view about function declaration. The syntax of function declaration is return type, function name, and parameters list. You can see the first example, int max, int num1 and num2. Here the return type is integer and the function name given is max and the parameters are two parameters, int num1 and num2. And parameter may or may not be used. It depends on the requirement. So we can also write as int max, int. Here the return type is int, function name is max, and the number of parameters used in the function are 2. The first parameter is of integer data type and second parameter is also is of integer data type. So we use int and int. Now we'll see what is function definition. If any function definition consists of block of code which is capable of performing some specific task. The syntax of function definition is return type, function name and parameters list and the body of the code which is present in closed flower braces. For example, int add ab. Here, there is no need to mention the data types of parameters within the function, but we have to mention both return data type and name of the argument. Now we will look into the function calling. To use a function, we need to call that function to perform a particular task. The syntax of function calling is function name and parameters list, and semicolon should be must. When a program calls a function, the program control is transferred to that call function. To call a function, you simply need to pass the required parameters along with function name, and if the function returns a value, then you need to store the returned value. Now we'll look an example to understand function declaration, function definition and function calling. Here in the example, you can see int a function, int b function, int c function. These are function prototypes or function declaration. After declaring the functions, the compiler goes to the main function. In the main function, we have int a is equal to a function. Then the compiler goes to the a function and then it sees int b is equal to b function. Then the compiler goes to the b function and it looks for int c is equal to c function. And here the compiler goes to the c function and then it prints hello function c and 3. Then the compiler goes to B function again and it prints hello function B and 2. And the compiler goes to A function again and it prints hello function A and 1. So the output will be hello function C, hello function B, hello function A. Now we'll look into the parameters passing. It is a technique of passing a data from one function to another function. This can be done by two ways. Now we will look into the topic of call by value. The values of actual parameters will be copied to the formal parameters, and these two different parameters are stored in different locations. And the values of actual parameters are passed to the variables in the parameters list of call function, and the call function works on formal parameters. If we have done any change in formal parameters, it does not affect the values in actual parameters. Understand this in better way by looking into the program. You can see an example of swapping of two numbers. In this program, the compiler will not return anything, so we use void as return type. When the compiler enters into the main function, the values of A and B are already declared as 10 and 20. Then the compiler prints the values of A and B before swapping as 10 and 20. Then the compiler enters into the swap function. In the swap function, A and B are converted into formal parameters, and swapping technique is done over there, and the compiler prints the values of A and B after swapping. So the values of A and B became as 20 and 10. Then the compiler comes out of the function. Now there will not be any change in the values of actual parameters. So after swapping in main function, the values of A and B are printed as 10 and 20, as you can see in the output. This is how call by value works. Now we will talk about call by reference. In call by reference, pointers come into the picture. Pointer is a variable which stores the address of another variable. In call by reference, the values of actual parameters are referred to the same locations, so any changes made in formal parameters are reflected to actual parameters. The call by reference method of passing arguments to a function copies the address of an argument into the formal parameter. You can understand this in the better way by looking into the example. Here you can see a program of swapping of two numbers by using call by reference method. Here the compiler does not return anything, so we use void as return type. When the compiler enters into the main function, it reads x and y as actual parameters, then it prints enter x and y values, then it prints the values of x and y before swapping, then it goes into the swapping function, and here int asterisk x, int asterisk y are considered as formal parameters. Here asterisk does not represent multiplication symbol, it indicates the pointer. Here if we have done any changes in the values of x and y, then it affects the values of actual parameters. So we should not do any change in the values of asterisk x and asterisk y. In the swapping function, the swapping technique is done, and then compiler goes back into the main function and prints the values of x and y after swapping. As you can see in the output, when the compiler enters into the main function, it prints the values of x and y, and it prints the values of x and y before swapping. When the compiler reads the swapping function and then comes back into the main function, then it prints the values of x and y after swapping. This is how a call by reference is done.